out there. Welcome, adventurers, to today's podcast, Adventurous Spirits. This is a weekly musical podcast to help us all reclaim some of the excitement and magic in everyday life. And I am your host, Cortney Matz. This is episode number 10. We're in the double digits, y'all. And today, our theme is art discovery. Art discovery. What do you think of when you think about discovering art? Do you think primarily of paintings? And discovering it in the sense that you walk around a corner and you find a painting? Or do you think of it in terms of hearing a poem that you never knew existed? And you are sort of like, ooh, I like that poem. I feel something from that poem. That poem makes sense to me. Do you think about music? Do you think about an artist that you maybe haven't heard or listened to intentionally? There's a group of people here in LA that do a monthly show based on the music from different bands. And it's all indie artists that are performing, and they cover songs from Radiohead and Bob Dylan and what are some other highlights? Queen, either bands or musicians that we might already be familiar with or have heard of. They're in the zeitgeist, they're out there, but maybe you didn't know their music very well. And to hear a whole night of songs interpreted by these independent artists is pretty cool. I've been to a couple of those, and I have been prompted to listen more closely to the music of Radiohead, for instance. I have a lot of friends who love Radiohead. I just, for whatever reason, never really heard their music before, and it was cool to discover them through that event. A live listening experience, which, if you know me, is one of my favorite ways to do music, just to be there with other listeners, to enjoy the room together, to hear someone sharing and presenting this music with us. So we're going to be thinking about that today. I have some stories, but I also welcome your stories, either live here in the chat on YouTube or after the fact through our Facebook community, facebook.com/groups/adventurous spirits. And I'm sure we will be sharing there all month long about our art discoveries. And the cool thing about discovering new art, new created works, as I like to think of them, is that it often prompts us to try it. So maybe you hear a poem and you never tried writing poetry before, but it prompts you to think more poetically about that thing. Or maybe you hear a song and you've never written a song before, but soon you're singing along and maybe you feel prompted to try writing your own song. We'll talk more about that soon, but I want to share with you a few songs that I wrote today that were prompted by someone else's creativity. This first one is called The Least Pretending, and it gets its title from a poem that was written by a friend of mine, Morgan Nikola-Wren. She has, I think, 3 books of poems, possibly 4, but this is from one of those books called Poems from the Attic, which she describes as a collection of poems that just kind of didn't have a home. They're like bits and scraps, but things that she likes. And it's a lovely book. The theme of them is that they're thoughts about all sorts of things, and they run the gamut. But this one caught my eye. It said, "Home is whichever place I do the least pretending. Home is whichever place I do the least pretending." And so I wrote a song around that. Here we go. Let me try that again. Tonight, all that's left of me is skin and instinct, shedding fallacies, misguided moralities. They're tugging at my elbows and nipping at my knees. You must blend in, you won't ever win. I suddenly can't keep listening. Shed that harassment like second skin. The world outside has nowhere to hide except inside my own mind. Making connections between thoughts and feelings, warts and healing. Let's start revealing what's really going on. I coax my pride from under the table, flex my hunger firm but stable, release these tangled curves from misery. I take my opinions off a shelf, barely recognize myself, fading in from black now. It's all coming back home. Home has always been whichever place I do the least pretending, the least pretending. Home has always been whichever place I do the least. And as we dance this fiery unveiling, I agree we were made for nonconformity. I am who I was always meant to be, at least partially. Whatever the case, I'm learning that home, well, it's always been, it will always be, whichever place, could be any place. I can breathe, I'm free to believe in myself again, whoever that may be. Finally, no more pretending. I'm coming home. Let's check in with our chat here. I see that Steve has commented. He says, when I think of art, I tend to think of paintings, drawings, and that sort of thing. But when I think of artists, I think of all sorts of things, from musicians to writers and more. Interesting. Isn't it interesting what that word art and artist sparks in our imagination? I have done some low-key polling on this topic. What do you think of when you think of art? Because there are times when you might pay someone a compliment for their baking, for instance, to use a present example, and be like, Steve, you're an artist. And it's almost like baking isn't supposed to be art, but you made it art, so you are extra special. You are artistly. But maybe baking is an art as well as a science. And maybe the way that you satisfy someone's appetite is an art. But it might not be the way that we typically think of art. So I'm trying to find common ground in terms of what do I mean when I say art, and what do you hear when you hear art? For our purposes in this podcast, talking about art, really anything that has been made by human hands or just present in the world that just catches your eye, that is a thing of beauty, a thing of truth, that helps reveal the world a little more fully, helps us explore. Steve also says, so with that in mind, when I think of discovering art, my first thought is of going to museums. Oh, I love that, going to museums. Okay. Which is something I don't do nearly often enough. I've heard it said that cooking is art. Oh, that's about my comments about baking. Cooking is art and baking is science. I think that both have a lot of both in them. Yeah, I agree. I think anyone who actually does these things, even surgeons, like there is surgery that is art for real, because you really have to think creatively about how to mess with somebody's innards in a way that is going to lead to health and ultimately to their recovery and to this person's being better. So even though something like medical procedure is solidly within the realm of science in terms of how we train for it, the practicality of it, I think, is artistic as well. So it's a wide open subject. Even math, I think, can be an art. What do you anything you can think of that isn't an art? Let's debate whether it's art or not. But I'm gonna suggest that there's potential, especially for engineers and people who study math, that there's potential for a really well designed math equation to inspire someone. That person may not be me, but I recognize that the potential is there. So that's a whole topic on its own. What is art? All that to say, if you're not sure if what you do is art, chances are it probably is. It's all about the how. It's about the attitude you bring to it. It's about the heart that you put into it. That is my assertion. That's the hill I'm going to stand on today's podcast. Rightly or wrongly, it feels right. It's definitely what I believe. I have been part of some spirited debates around the topic of what is art. And it doesn't really matter, I don't think, except for the sake of defining our terms. My whole point is no matter how much art you get to consume on a daily basis, we always need a little nudge to discover more, and we always enjoy coming across something new. And so I think that is an adventure, discovering new art. And if you really believe, like I do, that art could be anything, then you can discover art every second of the day. Like everything is new, everything is art. So anyway, all that to say, I had a little adventure this weekend dropping by my local library, which is something that I always want to do more of, to Steve's comment about the museums. I love going to museums, but I love going to libraries. And sometimes it feels like a library is a museum. It's just the art inside it is on the cover, or the book cover art, or the book itself, the words written inside, the design of the library, the layout of the books, I think sometimes is an artistic inspiration. Especially in the kids section. In the kids section, they take great pains, the librarians do, to choose books that are visually appealing and set them all along the top. So if you're not quite sure what you're looking for, it guides your eye a little bit. And I certainly had that experience. for whatever reason, this particular Sunday, they had a bunch of books that were about fashion designers, which was really fun because I may have mentioned before, but when I was growing up, my big dream was to be an illustrator, and I wanted to be the one illustrating those books. And I did a few of those. And I find it really inspiring to flip through some kids' books and just enjoy the pictures as well as the story. And I did let myself take a few of them home. I really try hard not to take a bunch of library books because I know I already have some at home. And it's like one more thing to remember to read and then return those books. But I'm happy to say that I have made great strides to read the books that I took with me. And I've really enjoyed them. I've really enjoyed the pictures. I've really enjoyed the stories. There was something thrilling about standing in the library and looking at all these pictures. I posted about one of them in the Facebook group. Specifically, there's a book called Bloom, which is about a fashion designer, I believe a European designer. I read several books, so I'm trying not to confuse their stories. Maybe a French designer? Oh, shoot. I don't remember now. I'll have to reread that one. But anyway, the illustrations were by an artist named Julie Morstad, and they were awesome. They were just awesome, and she really focused on the color shocking pink, like the bright, hot pink color, because I guess that was sort of this designer's signature discovery. She started designing all these clothes that are hot pink, and it was a big deal with her clientele. And it just jumps off the page at you in the book, so I put that out there as a recommendation. Bloom. Color is a big inspiration for me, as I will describe shortly. But first, I just want to give a shout out to Epiphany Space. Thank you so much for having me here, for letting me podcast from here every week. This is where I am right now, and this is where my piano lives all the time. And if you could use a little more artistic discovery in your life, we've got a lot of cool artists involved. And you can learn more about getting involved with this artist community at epiphanyspace.com. I'm going to sing this song for you first, and then I'll tell you about the story that inspired it. A lot of it is embedded in the song itself. It's called The Perfect Green. Shopping at Marshall's on Sunday. What do you think caught my eye? Surrounded by patrons and merchandise. Shopping at Marshall's on Sunday. You never quite know what you'll find. Imagine my delight when the perfect green caught my eye. You have to know what this means to me. I have been looking so long, and I dearly love putting all the colors on. But if you look in my closet, only if you represent, I've formed a strong attachment to the perfect green that's absent. Shopping at Marshall's on Sunday is something that I never do. I wasn't looking for anything new. But after a hard-working Saturday, that's when you find the one, and the perfect green will become. Thursday, I'm at the piano, feeling the joy of this find. It seems kinda silly that it's still on my mind. But if you are listening, I charge you to put yourself in my shoes. It's not that hard to do. And this, my friends, is the green shirt that I discovered that Sunday when I just happened to step into Marshall's, which is a place I had never been before, by the way. I just had no expectations, and I think that added to the joy of discovery. I had seriously been looking for something green. I just missed that color in my wardrobe, and I had sort of a muted green shirt for a while, but it just never made me happy. Like, it looked good on me, and I didn't mind myself in it. Like, when I caught a glimpse or when there were pictures, I was just like, yeah, I look good in that shirt, but wearing it didn't make me feel happy. And it was such a weird feeling that I just kept wearing it for a long time, and then finally said, you know what, I don't need this shirt in my life. But then, one day I was just walking through Marshall's, just to be there, just to check it out, just to be like, what is this store like? And this green literally jumped out at me from a rack. I mean, it was, if you've ever been inside a Marshall's, you know. There's nothing just sort of on display for you to find. You gotta go looking for it, and this shirt was just exactly what my imagination had conceived. And I just bought it and took it home, and it fit, and I have enjoyed wearing it every single time. And just seeing it in my closet was a joy. I can't explain that. There's just something to that. It feels like art. So whoever designated this color as a piece of clothing that they were going to use or manufacture, and whoever decided to purchase it and put it in the Marshall's catalog, if you will, I have benefited from it a lot. Have you ever had an experience like that, where you just weren't expecting to find something wonderful and it just totally took you by surprise? One of the things that I love about discovering art is the joy of sharing it. Once you find something that speaks to you, I find myself talking about it a lot when I either am talking to friends or, yeah, I guess just kind of out and about, and people say things like, oh, how are you? I'm like, you know what I just discovered? And it's really fun to share, and I would love for we adventurers to be people who just spread beautiful, enlightening, fun, exciting things. Because I think even our excitement about those things communicates excitement to someone else. And sometimes you just need to remember that there's cool stuff going on in the world. We tend to be very aware of the very uncool stuff going on in the world, the stressful stuff, the horrible, evil stuff. So it can bring some much needed perspective for someone just to surprise you with a thrilling discovery, even from shopping. So my encouragement to you this week as you go about your daily activities is to keep an eye out and be willing to be surprised. Even just going down an aisle at the grocery store that you don't normally go down could yield a discovery. Even if you don't make it to an actual museum, you may notice a plaque on a wall that you pass by all the time. You may see a sculpture in a garden or in a park that's in your neighborhood. And maybe you never took the time to read the inscription, but just, give yourself that extra 30 seconds to stop and look at it. If you pass a rose bush, smell it. Just try these little things. You may not have hours, you may not have even 1 hour. You may not even have 10 minutes to yourself. Sometimes that happens, depending on your lifestyle. But just take the minute or the 30 seconds just to have the intention. And I think you'll discover there's so much art and beauty around you that gets lost, just gets overlooked. Just maybe take a minute here and think about your day and think, when could I spend 10 minutes looking for art? Where do I want to look for it? Where will I be when I might make this discovery? Will it be flipping through Instagram or Pinterest? Will it be walking around the mall? Will it be driving from here to there? Could I take a little side street and see what I discover? Just think about that for a minute, about your day. This song I wrote because of an art gallery that I attended. It was a gallery show that was all themed around nature that is native to Los Angeles, because Los Angeles is full of transplants, not unlike its population of human beings. It is full of trees and flowers and bushes that were brought here from other parts of the world. So the theme of this art show was to celebrate the native plants and trees and flowers. And as part of the art on display, there were a couple of zines, which is just a little book. Usually they're handmade books, but in this case they were hand-drawn and then made multiple copies of. And this book that I had picked up was all about native trees. I think it's titled something like Native or Not. And so it would go through a bunch of different trees that you commonly find in LA. And you could guess, is this a native tree or not? And I was surprised by some of my discoveries. For instance, the jacaranda trees that we're well known for, the big, beautiful purple and green trees, those are not native. And here is a little known fact about this song. When I first began writing it, I was inspired by the jacarandas. Actually, it was a song about the jacaranda trees. But then as I was reading the book, I realized, oh, these are not native. So I switched it to the Ponderosa trees. among the Ponderosa trees, under the evergreen, we're dancing cheek to cheek, like lovers do. And as we're swaying in the breeze, pine cones beneath our feet, each one is whispering, I love you. Who knew living in Los Angeles could lead to this? A honey-colored night within a sleeping forest. The Ponderosa knows its name, but it cares nothing for fame. All of those silly games, so Hollywood, it takes a stand and stakes its claim, makes its intentions plain. Nothing can make it change what it knows is good. With you, there is nothing more to do than to be true. All is on display with nothing left to disapprove. Among the Ponderosa trees, moving in harmony, we are as evergreen as the pines we knew. And as we're swaying in the breeze, pine cones beneath our feet, each one is whispering, I love you. I love you. I love you. Steve says, I feel like jacarandas have a very different vibe from ponderosas. They would have made for a very different song. Maybe so. Well, my friends, I want to thank you for joining me today and for thinking about art discovery with me. I wish you many moments of joy this week as art just discovers you. Maybe it jumps out from around the corner at a shopping place like me. maybe it surprises you within the pages of a book and just teases your imagination. Maybe it entices you to create something similar. But in any case, I am glad to have your ears here today. If you would like to join live, I will be here on YouTube every Tuesday at noon Pacific time. And if you would like to hear some of these songs again and support the podcast for as little as $1 or as much as $500, I'm not trying to put a limit on your generosity. You can do that at patreon.com/Cortney Matz. Become one of my beloved patrons. Get a front row seat on this whole ride. But until we meet again, I'll see you next Tuesday. Enjoy whatever art is being discovered at you or discovered by you, discovered through you this week. And please do share something that you have found recently that you liked, so we can all enjoy it together. Have fun out there.